There are so many dimensions to Hiroshima. There's the Memorial Peace Museum and Park, but there also are inspiring origami cranes, Okonomiyaki savory pancakes, a stunning ferry ride to Miyajima Island, the famous floating Grand Torii Gate, JUDY'S Temple with its 500 small Buddha statues, and if you didn't get enough of the wild deer in Nara, you will find plenty of them here. We only have a day and a half, but we explore it all.
Welcome back to Finding Gina Marie, where we share our lives as full-time travelers and the connections we make along the way.
If you're new here, welcome. I'm Judy.
And I'm Kevin.
We couldn't go to Japan without visiting Hiroshima.
When we booked our trip, we had so many questions about this city and its tragic history. We really weren't sure about how we'd be received as Americans visiting there.
It wasn't at all what we expected. We took a walking tour of Hiroshima, which I highly recommend. But before we talk about that, we need to talk about the savory pancakes that my sister told me that we must try. And they're so memorable, we want to include them right out of the gate.
If we didn't already know that these were a Hiroshima food, we probably would have missed them.
We're so glad we didn't, because we ended up eating a variation of them throughout our time in Kyoto.
Since they've got eggs, meat, and vegetables, they're a complete meal. And so yummy.
The place we went to was very small, on a narrow street in the Fujimicho district. We'll put a link in the description below.
We had a bit of a communication breakdown with the owner, and she made only one for us to split versus one for each of us.
And that was quite a tragedy because the food was amazing.
As with many trips when you're crossing from city to city in Japan, the high-speed train system is wonderful. We recommend that you get tickets in advance because then you get to pick your seats. Last-minute tickets, sometimes you're stuck with whatever seat's available. And this is especially true if you want the 2-seat configuration versus the 3 seats, if it's just 2 of you traveling.
In our other episodes from Japan, we encourage you to arrive early and pick up some sort of bento box that you can get at the train station. It's perfectly acceptable to eat on the long-distance trains. We got some maki sushi to share.
The ride's a quick hour and 40 minutes and very comfortable. Hiroshima has both buses and trams, but we took a tram to our hotel, which was walking distance from Memorial Peace Park. The buses and trams run about the same time, but you'll want to take the one that's more convenient for where you're staying in the city.
Ours was about a 16-minute commute, and we only cost $1 or $2 to ride.
Our hotel was definitely budget size, so there wasn't a lot of room, and we were only there a couple days, so it wasn't a big deal. It was clean, the bed was comfortable, and the shower was hot. Although, it was quite a step up to get into the bathroom. That's a step up and a half.
Outside of that, what more could you want? Our first activity when we arrived was to visit the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Museum.
It was part of a tour that was 4.5 hours long. Our guide Mizu was shy and her voice was very quiet, but at the end of the tour she said something that we'll never forget.
The bombing of the city center of Hiroshima was the first time a nuclear weapon had ever been used outside of test explosions, and it destroyed 5 square miles of the city.
Over 180,000 people perished. 63% of the buildings were completely destroyed and many more were damaged. In total, 92% of the structures were either destroyed or damaged by blast and fire. Our
guide talked to us about how everything had changed as a result of the bomb instantaneously. The blast heated the exterior of Sumitomo Hiroshima Bank to over 5,000 degrees Celsius, which was enough to make the smooth stone blocks rough to the touch.
Everyone in the bank building perished, but the closed shutters on the first and second floors saved the interior from complete destruction.
Because so much of the surrounding area was completely destroyed, the interior of the bank was cleared and used as a shelter.
Unfortunately, the dangers of radiation poisoning weren't known at the time, and shockingly, the bank reopened for business 2 days later, and 6 hours later, they had the water supply restarted.
As we know now, the impact of radiation poisoning is multi-generational.
Some of the most heart-wrenching images that we saw during our time there were of people suffering from radiation poisoning and how it affected their future generations.
To look now in 2023, except for the signage around the city, you might not even know the devastation that occurred here.
With the exception of the atomic bomb dome, which has never been restored, it looks like a vibrant, thriving city.
The survivors of the bomb have worked tirelessly to educate about the impact of nuclear weapons in the hope that they are never used again.
Our first stop in the museum building was the Peace Clock. It was installed in 2001 in the hope of reducing the number of nuclear tests performed around the world. The clock shows the number of days from the Hiroshima bombing, and it also counts the number of days since the last nuclear test, which obviously has been reset more than once.
One of the most remarkable things about the entire park is how many inspirational elements were added to it. The park has over 200 species of trees that have been donated from all over the world to be symbols of both restoration and peace.
Peace Park also includes the Flame of Peace. It was designed to both console the souls of the thousands of people who died begging for water and to express the hopes for the elimination of nuclear weapons and lasting world peace.
The flame at the top was lit in 1964 and has been burning ever since in protest of nuclear weapons and will continue to burn until there are no nuclear weapons left on Earth. We want to share an inspiring story of a little girl named Sadako, who was only 2 years old when Hiroshima was bombed.
She ended up contracting leukemia at 12 years old. When she was in the hospital for treatment, the Red Cross Youth Club gave the children in the hospital origami cranes.
According to legend, a crane can live for 1,000 years, and a person who folds an origami crane for each year of a crane's life will have their wish granted.
Sadako was inspired to have her wish of being well again granted by folding 1,000 origami cranes.
Despite her illness, she managed to fold 1,000 cranes. Unfortunately, she didn't recover from her illness, but she started to fold additional cranes for wishes for others.
She died surrounded by family and 1,300 origami cranes.
Sadako's story inspired her classmates to raise money for a monument to honor their little friend. And donations grew enough to commemorate the thousands of children who died due to the bombing. We weren't sure what was happening next and why there was a lunch, but we'll take it. And we ended up going to Orizuru Tower. It was included as part of the tour, so we didn't have to pay extra for it.
We had several very cool surprises here. We started by eating in our laps in an area called Hiroshima Hills, which is a rooftop observatory and gives you a view of the atomic bomb dome and also Ground Zero.
It's designed to be a place for meditation and reflection, thanks in part to its stunning views.
We had no idea that we'd be part of the crane project and get to pick a piece of paper and create our own paper crane. Fortunately, there were guides to help us.
Although they say it's very easy, I didn't find it to be that way. After we created our cranes, we stepped out onto the glass ledge of the building. Don't worry, it's enclosed, and dropped our cranes down into the Orizuru wall.
The visuals of this building that was refurbished and designed with a glass wall that was specifically built to hold paper cranes made by visitors is just awe-inspiring.
It's intended to hold the world's hopes and wishes, and the guess is that it will take about 500,000 cranes to fill it up.
So we're curious, if you are visiting Japan, would you make time for Hiroshima? Let us know in the comments.
So what did our guide say that was so remarkable?
Well, we asked her about how the people of Hiroshima feel about Americans, because we felt a little sensitive walking into a city like this with the history that's here. And she said that there was culpability on both sides, that it's a much more complex history of what happened, and that the city's attitude is, we're working towards world peace. We're working to make sure that this never happens to another city in the world. So I thought that was a pretty damn positive way to treat a horrific situation like this going forward.
Before leaving Hiroshima, we wanted to ensure that we didn't miss anything else that was super important. And we're so glad we made time for Miyajima Island. But before we dive in, we're excited to share that we've started our own absolutely free community forum that we are calling La Familia. You can ask questions about trip planning and all things related to travel there. A video with the details is linked in the description below.
We had very little time to visit Miyajima Island, so we got up extremely early and had a plan. We were going to take our carry-on suitcases and put them in lockers at the Hiroshima station so we could go right to Kyoto after we were done.
So this wasn't too bad. This was 700 yen, and it held all of our stuff, which are 2 backpacks and our 2 carry-on suitcases. And we didn't originally have change, but there was somebody that had a volunteer vest on, and he was able to make change, was tried to be very helpful. So it was a little bit frustrating that Kevin had already gone to get money. Do you want to open that up?
It's pretty deep. So
yeah.
We were able to stack the 2 carry-on luggage and put the backpacks in front.
And only 500 yen if you only needed space for a backpack. The ferry to the island takes about 45 minutes. We boarded the ferry, and the views are absolutely incredible. I know that our cameras cannot cover the beauty that we're seeing.
As we got close to the island, we could see Itsukushima Torii Gate. It appears to be floating on the water. There's a lot you can do here, or you can skip much of it and wander around just like we did. We knew our time was short, so we wanted to take in all the views, especially of the deer.
Just a reminder that these are wild deer, and although they seem tame, they can be aggressive.
You're only allowed to feed them special crackers that you buy on site, but some people have said that the deer can be a bit more aggressive after you've fed them because they want you to give them more. So, very successful. We made it to the island, and now we're near the Otori Gate, which is out there on the water.
And it worked out well for us. So technically it's in the ground, but we're going on high tide, so we get to see it appear to float in the water, which obviously it doesn't. When you come in low tide, you could see the sand and everything else, but it was a nice surprise for us to catch it at the right time. The 5-story pagoda you see was originally built in 1407. But the interior isn't open to the public.
We didn't have time for it, but there's a ropeway up to Mount Misan for a fee. It takes about 30 minutes, and some people choose to walk down. Your choice, but the views from the cable cars look fantastic.
We didn't have time for breakfast or coffee before arriving, so we stopped to sample a coffee-flavored soft serve. Take 2.
Take 2.
So we
didn't have coffee, so I didn't put the button right. This is our coffee this morning.
It's
vanilla
coffee
ice cream.
And vanilla.
Yeah.
Specialty
Ice cream. And
which kind of works like a cappuccino, I think, coffee and milk.
Maybe I can push the button right this time. Cheers.
Cheers. It was very good.
But it wasn't coffee. Still as good as on the first take. Another famous treat from here are little maple leaf cakes, typically stuffed with red bean paste.
They're made from buckwheat and rice on the exterior. We didn't get them in the park, but we picked some up from the train station so we could enjoy them en route to our next destination.
Before boarding the ferry back, we stopped at JUDY'S Temple.
It's got plenty of steps, but they're worth it.
We were so surprised to see 500 Buddha statues here.
I'd heard about them, but I thought we were going to miss them. And for us, we had actually come to Hiroshima before we saw all of the temples. So this was our first experience to see the decorated Buddhas. The red bibs and caps are placed on the statues by parents as a memorial to their children whose lives were taken away too soon.
So let's talk about what we paid.
Our round-trip tickets from Kyoto to Hiroshima with assigned seats cost us 11,080 yen apiece, which includes an extra 510 yen for a reserved seat, which is optional.
Thanks for having us. It's great. You're doing a fine job. Our hotel cost us 27,375 yen for 3 nights.
But we were working, so we only had a day and a half to explore. Hiroshima Peace Walking Tour was $163.76 for both of us, which included lunch and the crane making activity at Orizuru Tower.
Entry to the tower is 1,700 yen per person, and if you want to do the crane making, it costs 100 yen a piece.
But both were built into the cost of our tour, so we didn't have to pay either of those fees.
The large luggage locker that we used cost 700 yen for the whole day.
The ferry to Miyajima Island cost 4,000 yen round trip per person.
And the delicious coffee-flavored soft serve cones were 900 yen for both of us.
This concludes our Japan series, and we hope you've enjoyed it. Check out our entire playlist from Japan in case you missed any episodes.
Thanks for watching our Japan episodes. We really appreciate it.
And we have had a great time filming it, so subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss any future episodes from here.
Check out findinggina.com, where there's a lot of articles and good information, and our forums.
Yes, until next time.
Until next time.